My name is Sophia Rashi, and the title of my speech is The Statue of Liberty. On the left-hand side, you see a picture of the Statue of Liberty, but it kind of looks different. And this picture has been edited so that it looks as if the Statue of Liberty was in its original form. Because the Statue of Liberty was originally made out of, it is made out of copper, which is basically the color of a penny, but over time, this copper color has turned into this greenish color. Many of us have probably learned about the Statue of Liberty in school, and there's a pretty good chance that some of us have family members that pass the Statue of Liberty when coming to New York to enter America. And there's even a chance that some of us have even gotten the opportunity to go to New York and see the Statue of Liberty. But the point is, we all know what the Statue of Liberty is. For me, the Statue of Liberty kind of means a lot. It's where both my grandparents entered America, and they both passed the Statue of Liberty. And if they hadn't done this, I probably wouldn't be here right now giving you this speech. And so I've done extensive research on the Statue of Liberty, and I specifically found that within a 50-year time span, over 12 million immigrants entered America by passing the Statue of Liberty. And I got this information from Processing 2006. So today I will be informing you on the Statue of Liberty. I will be discussing the history of the Statue of Liberty, the importance it played, the role it played during immigration, and the symbolism behind the statue. So to begin with, the whole idea behind the Statue of Liberty was that it was going to be a gift from France to America, and that it was a way of saying congratulations on becoming a democracy, as well as a form of friendship between France and America, saying that they'll be there for each other if need be. And so the plan was that America would have the Statue of Liberty ready to go on the 100th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And France was in charge of making the parts of the statue, and America was in charge of finding the spot to put the statue, which ended up being in New York. Now, the architect of the statue was Auguste Bartholdi, and this is a picture of him in the center of the screen. Now, he decided that because of how large the statue was going to be, he had to break it down into many different pieces. And specifically, each piece was started off with a wood frame that was then covered in plaster, and then eventually there was a layer of copper that was put over the plaster. And just to kind of give you an idea of how large the statue was, the head itself from chin to forehead stood at 17 feet, which is about triple my height. And so finally the pieces of the statue were completed in 1885, and they were then shipped off to America. Now, because of how many different parts there were over 200 crates that had the statue, and that was shipped off to America. And now, once America received all these pieces, it took about 4 months to finally put all the parts together. And so on the right-hand side, you can see these two images, which shows kind of what it looked like when being put together. On the left-hand side, you have the torch, and on the right-hand side, you have the head of the statue. Now, once completed, the statue stood at 305 feet tall, which is ginormous. And on October 26, 1886, the statue was finally presented to the public. And I got all this information from History 2009 and Green 2012. Now, if you were to visit New York today, you are able to visit the Statue of Liberty, but they no longer do tours inside of the statue. That way they can preserve the statue as long as they can. So now that we've learned about the history of the statue, let's look at the role that it played during immigration. So in 1892, New York opened up this port, you could call it, named Ellis Island. And from there, that's where immigrants were able to enter America. Now, as I said in my introduction, that 50-year time span was between 1892 and 1945, which is when about more than 12 million immigrants entered America by passing the Statue of Liberty. Now, for these immigrants, they came on steamboats, and they were typically third class, so they didn't have much with them, and they were usually pretty poor. And the first thing that they ever saw of America was this giant statue in front of them. And for them, this statue represented freedom and beginning a new life. And specifically, it reminds them that everything that they gave up in their countries is going to be worth it in the end. Now, these immigrants, when coming to America, they did have to pass inspections, specifically medical ones. Now, sadly, 2% of the immigrants that were trying to enter America through New York were sent back to their countries because they didn't pass these medical inspections. And for those people, though, that did have their paperwork ready to go, it still took between 2 to 5 hours to enter New York. Now, you might be like, oh, that's a long time. But for these people, it was nothing. They just spent days, weeks on a boat coming to America. 2 to 5 hours was a snap of a finger for them because it meant that they were going to start this new life. And seeing that giant statue for them was everything. And I got this information from Orchant 2018. Now on the right-hand side, you see this graph, and it tells you the number of immigrants that entered the U.S. between 1900 and 1920. Now, the peak year, and it looks like it was about 1905 or 1906, was over 1,300 people. And this is 10 years after this area was open for immigrants to come in, and these numbers are still so high each year. And this image that you see on the left-hand side is a book that these immigrants signed when entering America. And it said their name and their birth date. Now, the cool thing about these books is if you go to New York today, you can see these books. They have a few of them on display. Sadly, you can't flip through them, but it shows you what it looked like. And so you are able to visit Ellis Island and see what it was like for these immigrants to come to America. And specifically, you can see the Statue of Liberty from Ellis Island. So now that we have learned about the role the Statue of Liberty played during immigration, let's turn our attention to the symbolism behind the statue. So this statue was conceived as a symbol of Enlightenment liberalism. Even the name itself should tell you that this is a symbol of liberty. The Statue of Liberty. It's in its name. And the statue is also a symbol of friendship between France and America, saying that they will be there for each other if need be. Now, the statue was also seen as an inspiration, specifically to those people that were leaving for war. They saw it as a symbol of, like, I'm fighting for what this statue stands for. And immigrants also saw this statue as an inspiration. They specifically state that they enjoyed the way the statue held this torch up to the sky. Now, for the immigrants, the statue was also seen as a mother figure. And Professor Bieck at the Western England University stated that this statue was a mother who welcomed all as her children. So these people that were coming to America really felt as if this is their new home, that they have someone here who is going to look out for them. This giant statue will make sure that they're safe, will make sure that they start this amazing new life. And now, the torch that she is holding up to the sky is also a symbol of knowledge, that the fire is enlightened inside. And finally, the last symbol of the statue is that, as you can see in her left hand, there's this book. And on the book, it specifically states the date of the Declaration of Independence, which is when America declares that they are no longer part of England and they're their own country. And so this is a symbol of freedom. And I got this information from Lady 2007 and Brianus 2019. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see this graph. And it's telling you the number of people that visit the Statue of Liberty each year. And the average is between 3.5 and 4 million. And that's insane how many people visit this statue each year, which just shows you how important this statue is to America and what it represents. So in conclusion, I have taught you the history of the Statue of Liberty, the role it played during immigration, and the symbolism behind the statue. Now, we as Americans cannot forget where we came from. We all have to be appreciative of everything that we have. And this statue specifically represents everything that we do have, this freedom. And so I want to leave you with this quote that Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "Here they found life because there was freedom to live." Thank you.